Hi guys, so I'm going to be teaching you the easiest way to build a binary converter application looking exactly like this. You can modify it whichever way you want. So this is how it's going to be working. So it has no number input yet, and then when you type in numbers it disappears, and then it will convert and say this is what you entered, this is your decimal representation. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, I made a new project called testing, and now I'm going to be creating a new class. I'm going to click on other class, and I'm going to go under window builder. Once again, you can see where this is downloaded on the link that I'm going to put down below, and you can select application window, and I'm going to call this binary converter. And automatically we have some code already, which is pretty easy, and we can just do what we want with this. I like to go ahead and put everything in one method, so I'm going to delete this private one. Now I'm going to click design right here, and I'm going to design my window. Okay, so I put this J button right here, and I don't know why, but my structures or my properties are on the right side, but it should be on the left side, but I put it right here. So you want your font to be 1, which I put in. You can also change the horizontal alignment. You can change the font, which if you go in here, you can change it to bold and maybe 14 because this is too small, right? Now you have your 1 button, and now we can go ahead and add our 0, so 0, and let's do the same thing, bold 14. Now we can add in our convert that converts it from binary to decimal. So same button right here, and it's gonna say convert, and same format. So yeah, this changes the color. There's a lot you can mess around with over here, but I'm going to go ahead and do this, and I'm going to call this 1, variable 1, and I'm going to call this 0. This is for later for in our code. So right now this is actually creating the code for us, so we don't have to, fidget around for hours and figure out how to make this box bigger than this box, So now we have that, and now I'm going to put in that area that tells you what you're typing in and what the decimal is. So I'm going to use JText area and not JText field, because JText field only does 1 line, whereas JText area you can do 2 lines. And I want to do that 2 line where we saw the decimal and binary words. So I'm going to put this in the middle, and I'm going to stretch it out for as long as I want. So I'm going to make this one big. A little smaller actually. And I'm going to put, I'm going to name this the display num because I'm displaying numbers here. And then I'm going to put editable false, because only if you want the user to be able to click on the box and write down whatever word they want, then it can be editable. But in my case, I want a calculator where they can only press 0 and 1 and convert. So I said false. Let's see. What else can we do? So I'm going to put the text, no numbers input yet, meaning that there's nothing that the user has typed. Now I'm going to say do the font as the other ones, which was here. Okay, so we have that. Let's actually make it bigger. So now we can go back down to our code, which is on the bottom right here, source. And we have a lot of things here. So what this is the main class right here, and this is saying create this window, binary converter, and now we're in binary converter. So we can go ahead and test this out. And that's what we have. And so far we haven't done anything to our buttons. They're just buttons that nothing happens when you click them. So let's work on that. Let's work on number 1 first. So we want to say when we click this button, the very first button, we want all of these numbers to disappear, and we want there to be a 1 right here. You can actually go back into our design, and we can click on this number 1, right click, and go to the action that's performed on number 1. Usually sometimes this action isn't here, so you have to add the action. So you go to add event handler, action, and then you can add another one, or it'll tell you where the action is for this one. In this case, they went ahead and showed me where the action was, and it's going to be on this line right here, which is in the middle of all this code, so I'm going to separate it. And in this public void action perform, that is where we can do whatever we want. So we want to say, if you first click 1, we want those numbers on display num to disappear. So we're going to need some kind of counter that counts whether it is the very first time we press the button. So we can always use an int I, and I'm going to set it to 0, and I'm going to have it a private int. So this is going to be instance variable. So I have an instance variable I already initialized to 0, and inside this action perform, I'm going to say, when we press 1, if I is 0, meaning if this is the very first time you're clicking this button, then display num dot, and we can set that text in the display num to nothing. And semicolon. So display num, we need to look at that here. Display num was, if you remember, was the name of our, right, so right here, this is display num. So the problem with the steps that you first create things, we created 1 first, then we created 0, then we created convert. As you can see, it goes in chronological order. We created 1, we created 0, then we created convert, and then lastly we created that JText area. There's a error here that says display num can't be resolved, although we see it down here. It's because we never created it until after. So we're gonna have to move this before. That's the thing with the window editor. It's not that smart because it's a computer, right? We gotta tell it. We gotta tell it what to do sometimes. So I'm gonna move everything about that area to the very front because we're going to be editing these buttons with the display. So if number 1 button was clicked first, so if that was the very first time the user ever clicked a button, we're going to set the display to nothing. Then for sure we're going to set the text, and we're going to keep adding it on. Right, so we're going to get the text that it currently holds. So this is, for instance, if it wasn't even 1. If this is the second time you're pressing 1, we're going to get whatever what was on there already. Like if you press 0 and 1, and we're going to add it on. We're going to add a 1 onto that. So we're going to set the text. We're going to get the previous text that was on there, and pretty much append a 1 because we're pressing 1. And you pretty much want to do this same thing for button 0. So we look at button 0. We can pretty much go back to design and add an action to it. So action, add event handler action, and then action perform. So we want an action on here, and we want to, let's see, here we go. Except we're going to do 0. And right. Okay. Oops, there we go, and an extra bracket. Alright, this is all inside the action listener, and we are calling this public method, or declaring this public method, and we are saying if you press the button 0, and that's the first time you're clicking it, display the whole entire text area to nothing. And then after that, this is only if it's the first time you're clicking it. Oh, I forgot to mention, we have to increment I as well. So I'm going to do it after this one actually. So I plus, because I is going to always stay 0 unless you increment it. So we're going to increment it every single time we press a button. So that way we know when it's the first time we click the button. So now we're going to increment I in here as well. And now we can try this out we have 0, 1, 0, 1. Ta-da! And convert doesn't do anything. So as you can see, it works. We have this words, then the first time we click a number, they disappear. That was the whole point that we were trying to get to. And then we keep appending on those numbers. Now, we can go to our convert button, and we want to make it actually convert the numbers that were there. So we can do event handler action and action performed. Now we are now in action listener right here, and we can go inside this method right here. Now we essentially want to now convert whatever is in display num. So we have in our JText area right here, we have some display num. That is the name of it. If you remember, that's the name of this. So display num actually holds some sort of value whenever you do display num.get text. This actually gets whatever text is inside that JText area. So we essentially want to get this text, convert it to integer from binary to decimal, and then we want to output it back out in some certain format. So we can first get this text and put it into a string, because every get text, every display is always a string. It is never integer, double, or anything. It always outputs as a string. So we can call this string binary display num.get text. So now say we have 10 in there. String binary now says 10 in here as well. We are now going to convert this into decimal. So I'm going to put this into an integer, because you never really have decimal points when it comes to binary. I mean, you can, but for our project, we are only going to be doing binary numbers with no decimals. So we can parse this through the integer because it's a string right now, and this is how you convert from string to integer. And we bring in this binary and we do 2. That is how you convert from binary to decimal. You do this comma 2. So now this is a binary number, or a decimal number of the binary. And now we can actually now just put this back into a string, because we have now converted it, and now we need to put it back out into display num, which is string only. So we can do string decimal is now a string equals integer dot to string, and then decimal. So this is essentially how you convert from integer back to string now. You do integer dot to string. And now we can now just set our display number, which we wanted to say your binary string that you entered is, and now we're going to get whatever was on that display number. So get the text that was on the display number, which was what we said, oh, what if it's 10? Now we're going to say, okay, it's 10 plus, and then I'm going to put a /n for a new line, plus decimal representation, plus decimal string, which is decimal string is right here is what when that was the converted binary number. So now we put this in here, and now we are going to set I to 0. And this is in the case they want to keep converting new binary numbers. So after every conversion, and they look at this, I is now set to 0 after this, because the conversion is now done. So let's try this out. Yes, that's 2. So 10 is 2, and so it works. So now if we press 1, I is now set to 0, and it should erase everything on the JText area, just like so. And as you can see, we have 2 lines, which is what you can't do with JText field, which is why we chose JText area. So this is how you create your binary converter using a window editor the easy way.